What are we looking for as we anxiously scan the news at the moment? Surely we're looking for signs of hope, aren't we? Hope that things will change, hope that things can get back to normal, hope that we won't have to worry any longer for the health and well-being of our loved ones. That's what we're looking for, isn't it? And we're looking out eagerly for it. Just as when things are stripped away from us, it's a chance to ask ourselves, what do we really need? There's also a chance for us to say, what do we normally put our hope in? What do we normally invest all of our energies in? The things that we can't do at the moment, that we long to get back to. Well, in this passage, we see not only that Jesus promises and can deliver on what we most need, but that actually he promises to go way beyond that. He has promised to his people that he will deliver in full on all their hopes at a much deeper and more wonderful level than we could ever dare dream. We're going to see that Jesus is the one who has promised to give us all we hope for. And if we forget that, we'll end up in despair like these women, like the other disciples that we see in Luke 24. We'll end up in despair, but with Jesus, there is no need to despair, because even death cannot put an end to the hopes that people invest in him. The writer C.S. Lewis, many years ago, wrote, "If I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world." You see, our hopes, our dreams point to the fact that we were made for more than this. Otherwise, we wouldn't keep going after things that so often disappoint us. And of course, at the end of all our hopes and dreams, in a normal situation, is the ultimate crusher of hopes, death. And yet here, in this garden tomb, on that first Easter morning, is the evidence that there is somebody who can deliver on all his promises and fulfill all of our hopes and dreams and go way beyond anything we ever dared think possible. That's what the resurrection says to us. But of course, what these women are expecting as they go to the tomb is quite the opposite. They're expecting to have a struggle, to work out how to even do what they intended to do, which was to take spices and anoint his body, to give him a decent send-off. That's all that this world, without God, can offer to us, giving our loved ones a decent send-off, having a decent send-off ourselves. Death is the ultimate crusher of our hopes and dreams. And yet this empty tomb says that there is someone who can crush death itself, someone who can destroy the power that death has over you and me. Let's see how that unfolds in this passage. We see the women in verse 2 going to the tomb and finding the stone rolled away. They don't find the body of the Lord Jesus. How could they? He is the Lord Jesus. How could death ever hold him? But they're standing perplexed. They're wondering what is going on. And while they're wondering about it, two angels turn up. You see, we're so used to dreaming small dreams, to investing our hopes in small things, that when something truly epic, truly world-changing comes along and says, I can fulfill all of your deepest dreams, we simply can't comprehend it. That's why God had to send these two mighty messengers of light to interpret the events for these women. Just as at the beginning of Luke's Gospel we see events so extraordinary, so cataclysmic that it takes angels to explain them. The fact that God is coming into the world, being born as a human being, as one of us, to live for us and ultimately to die for us. It took angels to explain that, to say what God was about to do. Well, in the same way, it takes angels now to explain this cataclysmic, world-changing, life-changing event. Not what God is about to do, but what God has now done. That's what we see here at the empty tomb, that God has done what he set out to do. And it tells us that there is someone in whom we can and should invest all of our hopes, because even death cannot crush these hopes. He himself is the one who crushes death. In the very last chapter of the Bible, we see a picture of the new heavens and the new earth. And in the penultimate chapter, we see how it's brought about. We see that God himself determines, promises, and will deliver the new world that all of our hopes and dreams are pointing towards. All of our hopes and dreams are telling us we long would exist. God says it will happen. He says the old order of things has passed away. I am making everything new. And here in the garden, at that empty tomb, is the evidence that God has begun making everything new. This is the life, the real life, the historical down payment. This is the deposit that guarantees what God will do one day. Just as Jesus said he must be handed over, he must die, he must rise, and has now done it, then he can say to us today that if you put your trust in him, if you put your hopes in him, he will never disappoint. That's been my own experience, that whenever I've put my trust and hope in him alone, he has not disappointed me. When I've put my trust in other things, again and again, they end up disappointing me. But here is the one who not even death can destroy. In fact, he himself is the destroyer of death, which itself is the ultimate destroyer of our hopes and dreams. Have you put your trust in him? Have you been hoping in other things, investing your time and your dreams in the wrong kinds of things? Jesus is offering us in his resurrection the beginnings of a new world, the chance for us to be going there with him and through him. Our final song declares the dawning of that glorious hope in Jerusalem, on a morning in a garden that changed the world forever.